What's up guys, Warner here with a Destruction Warlock PvP guide. This is BFA 8.2.5 and we'll be going over everything from the best race, what talents are best, the traits, the essences, best 2s and 3s comps, and everything in between. So the best race for a Warlock is Orc because of the stun reduction by 20%, and for Alliance it is Human because they get out of stuns once every 3 minutes, so they can always opt out to play Relentless, which is by far the best. The best talents for Destruction Warlock are, as I show right here, Flashover is mandatory, you cannot live without it. Reverse Entropy is pretty good, but it can be spell stolen or purged, so keep that in mind. Demon Skin is 99% what you take all the time in any situation. In setup comps where like Rogue Mage Paladin, maybe you can opt to take Dark Pact if you can wall at 100% health. It does give a 280k shield. Cataclysm is your best option versus any DK or Windwalker that has a bunch of pets that you can generate soul shards with. Mortal Coil is great because you can Havoc, which duplicates the spell, and then you press Mortal Coil, and it goes to 2 people, also generating 20% of your health and making the 2 enemies flee for 3 seconds. And this is where I don't play like a lot of other Warlocks. A lot of Warlocks play Roaring Blaze, and they opt out of Grimoire Supremacy. Supremacy is the best option for a Destruction Warlock because it gives you the highest burst potential in the game, and you can generate shards insanely quickly and spend them and Dark Soul at the end of your Infernal and basically one shot, two shot something. And Supremacy is mandatory in my opinion, and I'll show you why. So let's go to essences here. Essences. A lot of people, a lot of Warlock play this cookie cutter build Conflict where they get Demon Armor and then they play Entrenched Flames and Fellfisher. But let's say you're facing a Mage Lock Druid in 3s. Like you would never play, you just straight up don't need Demon Armor, right? So what do you play? You can play Perfection, which basically procs random Infernals, and that is great cleave damage. You can pair this with Supremacy, and you can get some big bolts. But I think Lucid Dreams as a major is one of the best options. And as a minor, you should always take, at a bare minimum, you need Perfection as a minor because without it, your Infernal cooldown increases by 30 seconds. And for the other minor, you can choose anything from Crucible of Flame. If you're not running Lucid as major, you can run that as a minor. And that is, those are the essences, and let me show you why Lucid is crazy. So to generate shards, you need to immolate everything, right? Make sure that the dot is on and ticking. So when you Infernal, you'll be getting maximum shards. So right here, I press Lucid, I press Havoc, and basically you can spam Rain of Fire, immolate, and generate shards. Just look at how fast these shards are generating. It's actually crazy. So right here, I have 20 stacks, and it's only been 15 seconds. So right here, you can just start spamming bolts, and this damage is pretty much unparalleled from any class in the game. Maybe the raid boss would do this equivalent of damage, but as you can see, around 100k DPS, and if you can cast in an arena, which is, it's a big if, but if you can, you will for sure one-shot something. And Lucid is kind of like the balls to the wall strat. It can be pillared, you can be kicked, you can be CC'd, and it is frustrating, but it's all about the setup and where you play in the game, right? So those are the essences. The best trinkets to play as a Destruction Warlock are badge because it increases your primary stat intellect by an absurd amount, 3,000. And you can, if you're being trained a lot and if you're constantly under pressure, under fire by people, you can play Battle Master, and you can pair this with your Hellstone and your Mortal Coil. So, because both Hellstone and Mortal Coil are percentage based, and since Battle Master increases your maximum health, you gain much more healing than you would without the Battle Master. And if you're trying to play more offensive, let's say that you're not being trained, you can run the Voodoo Doll, which is great burst potential, especially if you pair it with your Dark Soul. And or you can play like the pocket-sized computation device. I have a lot of haste, and this increases my haste by around 600 overall. So it's really a personal preference what you decide to play. And let's talk about stat stats. Haste and mastery are your two bread and butter stats. Mastery is a double. It has two benefits, right? It makes your spells do more damage, but it also reduces the damage that you take. So it makes you tanky just as much as it makes you do more damage. And mastery is good to an extent. I'd say at least have 60%. And for me, I like to stack haste because with haste you can generate shards quicker. You can get off more bolts. You can two-shot something. You can with two sub 1 second bolts, and it it is much more combustible, much more exhilarating to play with haste rather than mastery, where you're casting bolts like that are 5 seconds long, and it's just really not fun. So I like to stack haste, but I think you should at least have 21% haste, and then you can stack mastery if you prefer to stack mastery, which is completely cool. And let's talk about PvP talents. Let's say you're facing a DK and a Resto Druid or H Paladin in twos. You want to run. You can run Conflict as a major, and then you can play Entrenched Flames and Fissure, or you can play like Lucid, like I am right here, and then you can play Demon Armor as a PvP talent instead of Fell Fissure or Entrenched Flame, depending on your preference. And it's all circumstantial though. You should never play Conflict every game, never, because you have to think about it. It's all circumstantial. And for pets, uh, a lot of warlocks neglect to realize that their pet has a purge. It's called Devour Magic. So if a mage combusts on you, if he catches fire, you can press Devour Magic, and it has a chance to purge this magic effect on the mage, right? And the CS is pretty great against every caster comp. If there is a single caster on the other team, if there's one healer and one melee DPS, you pretty much play the Fell Hunter or the Observer. They're the same pet. And the Succubus is great it's great in duels versus melee, like rogues or warriors, or shamans, enhanced shamans, but it's really not too great in arena unless because most arenas have a caster in it. But the imp is another overlooked pet that has the ability to pretty much purge the CC that your healer or that you are in. So if you have a freezing trap on you or hammer of justice, right? You cannot break it because your trinket's not up. What you can do is your imp can devour the magic, right? Or singe the magic and free you from that trap or free your friend from the trap. So it's great against like a jungle cleave where the hunter traps you off of a stun, or the priest fears your healer off of a sap or something, right? So it's all situational, and the imp is pretty good in situations where your healer wasted his spell. on a maledict or uses a dispel on a maledict, and you can free yourself with the imp if you leave this auto toggle on right here. If you turn it off, you can make a macro, and he'll only cleanse whoever you want when you tell him to. But I'll get into my macros in a minute. The best comps and 2s for 2v2 arenas are Destruction Lock, Resto Druid, or Destruction Lock, Holy Priest. The Destruction Lock, our Druid kind of relies on your Resto Druid getting restuns, rake stuns to set up your big damage and vortexing and bashing when you have Dark Soul and Infernal up. And the Holy Priest is much more like a dampening, brainless comp. You spam Greater Hail, Chaos Bolt, and Fear, and you win games because the comp's pretty much broken. But yeah, your rotation, and sorry, for 3s, the best comp for Destruction Lock is probably RLP, Rogue, Lock, Paladin. You can blind, you can fear, you can sap off fear. Repentance is nuts, and Hodge, repent, fear. It's crazy, and the Rogue sets up all of your bolts with kidneys. Another great comp is MLD, Mage, Lock, Druid, or you could play. Those two are top tier for sure. And let's talk about the rotation one more time, and then we'll get into the macros, and then we'll call it. So let's say you're playing Lucid. Immolate everything, you can just kata, right? Get your dots rolling. Immolate everything, Infernal, Rain of Fire, you Havoc to duplicate your spells, you press Lucid Dreams, Rain of Fire again, Conflag, Rain of Fire, Incinerate, Rain of Fire again, because you got another proc, Rain of Fire again, 18 stacks, you have 20 seconds left on Dark Soul, on Infernal, and now you press Bolt and Dark Soul, and you just spam bolts until the enemy is gonzo, right? And this damage is pretty much dependent on the person not pillaring you, right? So it can be really frustrating if you don't get it, but try to set it up with the fear out into the open, and then you can cast 2 bolts if you have high haste, and then you can coil off of that, and then you can put it into a Shadow Fury. So it's all about your setups, right? How you plan for the big bolts. And the macros that I like to use are pretty much mouse overs for things like Cataclysm, Shadow Fury, Rain of Fire. I like to have Inferno, not a mouse over macro because it's a bit inconvenient in my opinion. But yeah, here's my Shadow Fury show tooltip cast at cursor Shadow Fury, right? Same thing for Rain of Fire. And if you want your pet to be chasing the healer all the time, then you can put a pet attack focus, which is this line right here basically tells your pet to attack your focus target. So if you set the healer as if you set the healer as the focus target, then if you press immolate, then it will never lose. Then your pet will never lose the focus target, or never stop keeping him in combat, never stop attacking him, right? And the last one is like Dark Soul paired with Trinket, use 14. That is this one right here. Badge and Blood Fury. I used to be an orc, and that is no longer the case. This is my kick macro, and it's good to have a focus sphere macro, so you can be deceptive on who you are actually fearing. So this is my focus right here, and focus, fear, right? And this script makes my casting bar bigger. This makes my target's casting bar bigger, and this makes mine bigger. And you can scale it based on this number, right?